At some point in your life, you've probably felt overwhelmed looking at your finances or felt like you're behind in some way. I think it's crazy that we're not educated about personal finance. We're just expected to figure it out. So in this video, I'm going to talk through some simple ways that you can ease financial stress and feel more confident about investing and your financial future. When it comes to financial stress, it's important to first identify the root cause. This is all about being honest with ourselves. Having that tough conversation. We don't want to admit to ourselves that we're in a particular situation. It's so easy to kid ourselves and kick the can down the road. About 6 years ago, I got myself into £50,000 worth of debt. I was fortunately able to get myself out of it. But while I was going through that period, I didn't want to tell anyone. I was too ashamed, I was too embarrassed. I didn't want to admit to myself that I'd done something wrong. I do think social media has a part to play here. It gives us a false sense of reality. It makes it seem like everyone's smashing it and everyone's doing well. And obviously no one's really openly talking about their finances online. I think environment as well has a big part to play. I was working in a corporate job in the city of London, and it's very easy to get caught up with wanting to appear like you're doing well. People are obviously earning a lot of money, but they're also spending a lot of money as well. And even when I was building up that debt, I didn't reduce my spending because I didn't want it to look like, oh, he can't afford this, or oh, he's having to save more. And it took me a long time to realize what is really important to me. So that's why it's important when we're trying to identify the root cause is to establish what is triggering the anxiety. Is it a buildup of debt? Is it a lack of savings? Or is it some form of uncertainty around your financial future? Once you can understand the source, then it's so much easier to take that first step to taking back control. Money is such a weirdly awkward topic, isn't it? No one really wants to talk about it, but it really shouldn't be. So the first thing is to open up about it. Talk to someone close to you that you trust. It could be a partner, a friend. Even reach out to online communities. There's a lot more now than there used to be, where people are openly talking about their finances, their goals, their strategies, maybe some of the things that they've been through that you can relate to. Just speaking out loud about your problems is a massive first step. Once we've established the root cause, the next thing we need to do is to take action. Because if you're someone who deals with a crippling level of insufficiency, your ability to override any strong thoughts is going to be so powerful that if you try to lead with positivity and affirmations first, along the lines of think it, believe it, achieve it, your negativity will just crush that into the ground. That's why we have to start with action. Action precedes motivation. Everyone waits to feel motivated before they start something, but that comes later down the line. It's not until you start that things will change. When I talk about taking action, it can be the smallest win. It could be tracking your expenses for the week. It could be taking lunch into work instead of buying it out. It could be developing a bit of an evening routine to help your sleep. And then that means you can wake up 45 minutes earlier to either work on your side hustle, learn a new skill, or just boost your knowledge in a particular topic. I want you to picture this time next week. What would have had to have happened for you to look back on that week and feel pride in yourself? The single biggest thing for me was to build an emergency fund. Just 1 month's living expenses to start with, to cover unexpected expenses such as the car breaking down, medical expenses, or a loss of income through losing your job. Knowing that you don't have to go into debt to cover these expenses is a massive weight off your shoulders. The general recommendation is to build 3 to 6 months of living expenses, but I find if you start with that goal, trying to save 6 months of your living expenses, that could take you 2 or 3 years to save. So for me, the first priority is just get to 1 month, then we can build it from there. Once we've got that 1 month covered, then we can start having a bit more of a balanced approach. Of course, if you do have some really high interest debt, then it does make sense to pay that off first before building out your emergency fund. Once we've built that financial peace of mind and we have the short-term expenses covered, then we can look at investing. Now, I think the hardest part and a lot of the stress when it comes to investing comes from the volatility. It of course doesn't move in a straight line. There's some wild swings. Now I can sit here and tell you that the stock market has a 100% success rate of recovering crashes. It's averaged around 9% for the past 70 years. Buy the dip, etc., etc. You've heard that all before. I think a better way to look at it is recognizing that you're likely already an investor via a pension and looking at the nature of pensions and what we can learn from that. Because unless you're very close to your retirement age, I can't imagine you're going to be too stressed about the performance of your pension because you know it's such a long-term product. And actually how pensions are set up, the closer you get to retirement age, they actually de-risk the portfolio. So instead of having all of your money into equity, they'll start to de-risk that and put more money into bonds, money market funds. You may not get as good a return as in the stock market, but it's all about protecting that capital as you get closer to retirement age. But there's some really specific elements of pensions that I think can be great learnings. The first is long-term. When you're in your 20s and 30s, you have a massively long time horizon. So you're not bothered about any volatility. You know you can ride it out because it's such a long-term thing. The other important factor is that you can't touch it. So even if you do have a panic and you want to sell it, you can't touch it until you get to retirement age. And then the final thing is contributions into a pension are very regular and they're very automatic. If you invest into a workplace pension, it'll just come automatically out of your payslip every month. You don't have to think about it on a monthly basis. It's just automatically done for you. So if we take that framework and look at our ordinary investing, what can we learn from that? So of course, long-term makes the most sense. That's why it's important to have that emergency fund set up first of all. But then it's also important to have maybe some short-term savings as well. So say, for example, you might be saving for a big purchase. It could be a holiday, a car, even a house. If you're looking to save and buy that product within the next 1 to 5 years, it probably doesn't make too much sense having that money invested into the stock market because you can't 100% guarantee that you're going to get a return. So from there, it probably makes more sense to have that money in a high interest savings account, maybe into some bonds as well. But once you've got that covered, then you can think about your long-term investing, because any money you then put into the stock market, you know you don't need to touch for at least 5 years. And the longer you can leave it, the better return you're going to get. Not only does that have a long-term nature, but when we compare that to pensions that we can't touch, the more that we can sort out our short-term finances, the less likely we're going to touch our investing, because we know we've already got that short-term covered. The other part of pensions is the regular and automatic contributions, and that's exactly how we should treat our ordinary investing. So establish what you can afford to invest into the stock market each month. This is where creating a budget is going to be so helpful. So you can work out how much you're going to put into an emergency fund, your short-term savings, and how much can you afford to put into the stock market long-term. I have a budgeting spreadsheet which can help you do this. I'll leave a link to that in the description below. But once you've established how much you can invest into the stock market, then it's really important to make it regular, automatic. Of course, if you need to, you can adjust that amount, but make sure that it's hands-off. Have a direct debit set up. There's some platforms that even allow you to invest more regularly. So it could be monthly, but you might also want to do it weekly or daily. That's of course up to you. When it comes to personal finance, knowledge is power and can be a huge confidence booster. That's why it's important that we also educate ourselves as well. It could be reading a book, reading an article. It could be following your favorite creator that helps to explain finance in an easy way that you understand. You don't need to become a financial expert. And actually, sometimes you can go too far down the rabbit hole, and actually that can increase your stress because you're reading too many articles and you're keeping too much up to date with what's going on in the markets. But just understanding a little bit more about some of the terminology or some of the strategies that potentially other people are using will make you feel so much better. I think it's far too easy to get hung up on what's gone wrong rather than focusing on what's actually gone right, however small it is. It could be that you've paid off some debt this week. Maybe you've started saving. Maybe you haven't overspent for the week. That's progress, and you should celebrate that. This is not about perfection. This is about reinforcing good habits, building small wins, and building that progress that moves you in the right direction. Let me know what's one small step that you're going to take today or this week that's going to make you feel more in control of your finances. I hope you found that useful. Check out my recommended investing apps in the description below. Drop it a like if you enjoyed it. Subscribe if you're new, and I will catch you in the next one.